What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up, y'all? Hammer here again, back with another live. Um, First of all, before I even begin, let me just go ahead and quickly apologize to you guys. I know I'm a little late. Well, approximately 1 hour late, right? If you want to be precise. But I do have an excuse. Um, I don't know if you guys noticed, but I just uploaded a new video on the channel. And I was supposed to actually go out there an hour ago, but what happened is that before I actually started going live, I was going through the whole colleague issue, and I had to make a video about it. And for me, when I talk about certain issues, certain topics, especially the ones I'm really passionate about, it can take time. So that was almost a 40 hour. That was a 40-minute video, essentially, right? And so once I got out of the way, I essentially upload it, and that was about it, right? But I was able to kind of freshen myself up, and I'm ready to kind of live stream. I was thinking about even rescheduling this live stream actually, but I felt like this topic is just too important. It's just too important because I don't have that much time in a day, so typically it's the best time to do it. But what I want to talk about today is this growing obsession that I have been seeing. Maybe this has always been there, but I've just never like noticed it, or I've never really paid attention to it in any serious kind of way. But in recent times, right, I have been seeing this sort of growing number of Black Americans who are, let me just say this, look, it's one thing for you to say that there are people in my family who are mixed with Native American. I don't think that's factually true, right? It's one thing for you to say that I was able to apply and get tribal citizenship, right? That's another thing, right? I think for me, the problem then becomes when you go from, oh, I have some admixture with Native Americans, I have maybe some tribal shit in there, to just outright saying that you are the Native American, right? Now, let me just start by saying this, right? In the past, I personally believe that people who've had these views and perspectives have always existed. They've always been there. In my opinion, they've always been there. But I think that they were always put and viewed on the fringes of things, right? They were never actually saw as being part of the overall mainstream, because that shit was insane. It was crazy, right? It was the equivalent of you denying history, right? But I personally believe that deep down, a lot of Black Americans have, I think, in my opinion, have always resented their history, especially in regards to Africa, right? Now, I recently made a video called, not recently, but a couple of, I think, of days ago, I made a video called "We Are Not African," and the whole idea was to sort of break down this rising phenomenon of Black Americans who just don't want South Africa, right? Now, I personally believe that this goes back to uh, hidden subconscious disdain about the lineage and heritage, and it's just that is bold to the surface, right? Now, let me just go and dive into this, okay? Even before Black Americans started to obsess over Native Americans and calling themselves that, right? There was a massive amount of obsession over Egypt, and this is and I will sort of dive into why, because in my opinion, there are multiple reasons as to why so many Black Americans, in my opinion, are now obsessing over Native Americans. Before I get into that, I first want to talk about how even before the whole Native American obsession, I mean, it was always there, but even before that, right? The main focus in the Black American community was the obsession over Egypt, specifically North Africa. Okay. Now, one thing I have noticed growing up my life, listen, that's true, right? Is that a lot of Black Americans were extremely obsessed over ancient Egypt. extreme. I never understood why. I didn't get why the decision came from. I think for me, I just saw it. I saw it in a benign way. I didn't think much of it, in my opinion. Um, I said, okay, maybe they're trying to claim something. I don't know. But it wasn't until I got older, right? Especially when you had the whole, trailer about Cleopatra, that I started to realize that there's something deeper to this obsession, right? Because I remember that how there were a lot of North Africans and a lot of white people online that was saying that, hey, look, the only reason why you guys obsess over Egypt the way you guys do is because you don't want to be associated with Black Africa, especially West Africa, right? And the irony is that I was actually one of the ones that were out there defending Black. Like, no, that's not true. They're just talking about history, right? Because I genuinely believed, from my point of view, that Black Americans genuinely, like, at the time, I had a real perception that the average Black American is although they may feel a certain kind of way about them being sort of slave, which is understandable. They had a genuine, they were genuinely proud of the lineage, of the heritage, right, of the African heritage, right. So I always come say, no, that's not true. It's not because they don't want to be African, right. So, right. But I have to admit, all those people, I have to apologize to them, because it turns out you guys were right. Because what I have noticed since, right, is that the moment in which Black Americans were no longer able to, I guess, because I will say for a very long time they were trying to claim ancient Egypt, but once it became clear, especially with the coup, I said that they just could not do that anymore. The moment they could no longer claim ancient Egypt, they instantly started throwing Black Africans on the bus. Then all of a sudden, I started seeing all these movements about we're not African, we're native, we're Celtics, we're all these other things, right? All of a sudden, I started see, to regain prominence. I'm calling folks terrorists online. So, what I've started to realize is that there may have been some truth to what a lot of them were saying. That for a lot of Black Americans, the only time they want to claim Africa, the only time they want to claim Africans is if they can use it as a proxy to tie themselves to non-Black people. So I'm gonna give you an example. They will only claim that they descend from Africa or claim Africa if as a way of proving that somehow they're tied to ancient Egypt. So in other words, the goal is to not be Black African. The goal is to be tied to North Africa or to Egypt or to the Nile, right? Black Africans are just used as a transitionary point to get there. Okay. So yeah, we'll temporarily acknowledge that we descend from you guys, so we can use it as a proxy to go to claim other groups. But the moment in which we can no longer use you guys as a proxy to claim uh, um, 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 non-black groups or each other, all of a sudden now we not with you. Because I was like, okay, first of all, why do you guys fight so hard to claim a country that amount is not even Black? It's mostly not, it's been Arabized. Most people live in not Black. Why are you fighting? Why are you spending more time on that than on West Africa? On all the Black African sisters, you guys don't talk about those things, right? You're not going out here, like, sometimes you're with that shit, but you don't really care about that stuff. You only ever focus on I'm gonna say this, look. The only time Black Americans, in my opinion, it's not all, but in general, the only time they want to talk about Africa is in regards to Egypt. Whenever the conversation is about Egypt, they will argue with you for hours and hours about how they're Egyptian, about all these other things. Whenever the conversation is about below the Sahara, Black Africans, all of a sudden now, oh, that's not our problem. That's the problem. All of a sudden now, Pan-Africanism is a problem. All of a sudden now, we gotta focus here. All of a sudden now, we're not the same. So when it came to Egypt, they had no problem with Africa. They had no problem. They had no problem tying themselves to those things. But when the conversation becomes about, sub-Saharan Africa or Black Africans, all of a sudden now it's what's up, all these stuff. This is not all, but this is a pattern I have been noticing in a very long time. And up until I recently, I used to believe, in a lot of people when they said that. Uh, Up until recently, whenever you would have, Arabs or whites who will say that, Black Americans only claim, like, they're not actually proud of being Black African, instead of just care about Egypt or North Africa. I thought it was just being crazy, but I have to agree that, there is some truth to that, right? Now, here's the thing. I understand, right, that because Africa is at the bottom of the hierarchy globally, many of them don't want to be associated. I get that perfectly, right? I think for a very long time, I was thinking to myself, okay, what could be the reason as to why this is? Why is it that they only care about? And don't worry, guys. I will get I will get to the Native American piece, but I'm just kind of telling you how we got here, right? I was thinking to myself, what could be the sort of motivation behind so many of them who they will fight like hell to claim Egypt, but then fight like hell to not be associated with Africans, right? What could motivate? I think, maybe it's because Africa's the bottom of the hierarchy and they don't want to be associated with that, and I said that's possible, right? Another reason I thought was that maybe it's because many of them feel resentment because it was sold to slavery, which is understandable, right? And I know many Black Africans don't want to be on, but that's true. Like some will capture, but a lot of them were sold to slavery, right? And I said maybe it's because them living in America, white people throw Africa in their face, and so um for a lot, and I mean for a lot of Black Americans, they feel like because white folks keep trying to Africanize them, or don't accept them as being fully American, they feel like by the more they push away Africa, the more they can be said as American, right? So, but even with all of that stuff, right? At the end of the day, I felt like in my opinion, I felt like all of those examples are probably true, right? It's not one of those things. It's all of those things, right? Africa being at the bottom, resentment over the slave trade, and them wanting to be more American than African, right? So I believe all of those things play a role. So when you have a group of people that are already coming, that already, so those are the reasons that came up when I feel like that's the most accurate. So when you have a group of people who, on one hand, they view Africa as the bottom of the hierarchy, right? So obviously don't be associated with that. They feel resentment or deny about them being sold into slavery, and they sort of feel like the more they push away Africa, the more American they'll be. When you got all of these things into play, it makes sense that the only time they will claim Africa is with Egypt, right? But it also explains, in my opinion, why now that it has become clear that they can no longer go around here claiming North Africa or Yemen. It's crazy because recently now they're literally trying to push a new movie called Hannibal, right? In which they're having Denzel Washington play a role. Hannibal, of course, was a Carthaginian general. He led the force against Carthage and defeated Rome. Sorry, he lost against Rome during the Second Punic War, right? This man, Carthage is in what is now currently Tunisia. But yeah, they're trying to have a Denzel Washington play a Hannibal. So it just, now that it's become clear to them that all of their attempts to claim North Africa and Egypt is just not going to work. Now the new game plan as a way to not be associated with Africans. Well, actually we're native to this country, right? So this is where the Native American conversation comes in. This recent rise in them claiming to be Native American really is nothing more in response to the fact that their attempts to claim everything else, right? Egypt, North Africa, Asia, or Mexico, because all of those attempts have failed. Now, another way they're trying to not be associated with Africans is by saying Native American, right? Now, I have already listed the sort of original reasons why I believe that Black Americans don't want to be associated with Black Africans, which is that, of course, one, Africa's about the hierarchy; two, there's resentment over them being sort of into slavery; and three, they feel like the more they push away Africa, Black Africa, the more American they will be, right? But another reason why I think they do that, especially when it comes to them now claiming them being Native American, is that in addition to the fact that they have come to the realization that, hey, we can no longer claim Egypt and North Africa and all these other non-black groups, by us now claiming Native Americans, right? We essentially have a greater, claim to land. A lot of Black Americans, in my opinion, one thing they deal with in the United States is them being a permanent underclass and them essentially not really being citizens. And what I mean by that is them being a permanent underclass means that the dominant white society goes out of its way to undermine them all the fucking time, all the time, right? Whenever the white society whenever the white society sees too many Black Americans somewhere, it's time to undermine, right? So it's almost like there's this hard ceiling that keeps them at the bottom. But also, number two, they resent the fact they see all of these other groups of people getting benefits or being prioritized over them. And on top of that, although they may have citizenship on paper, in practice they're not treated like citizens. So yeah, on paper they have American citizenship, but in practice they're not really treated like Americans. Okay? In practice, Black Americans are not treated like Americans, although they may have the legal power. This is the reason why when I hear all these FBs and idiots talking about how America, I'm like, bro, look, you're out here caping for America so hard. America doesn't even claim you. The United States will take a migrant and put over you in a second, but you're always talking about how America. It's sad. Okay? So I believe that in addition to the fact that they do not want to be associated with Black Africans because Africa's the bottom of the hierarchy, there's resentment over them being sort of slaves. They feel like pushing away Africa will make them more American. On top of that, another reason why they sort of obsess over Native Americans is that because they have failed to claim North Africa, they feel like by claiming Native Americans, they will have more claim to the territory. Because, like I said before, due to them being a permanent underclass, they already know that there is a hard glass ceiling above them, right? There's a hard glass ceiling above them, which means that the white side is always trying to push them at the bottom. And on top of that, although they may have citizenship on paper, the citizenship is not honored in practice. This is the reason why I'm gonna give an example. They will beg Chicago for years for funds and resources, right? Although they're American citizens, but they won't get it. But a bunch of migrants will come across the border and they'll get a shit immediately. These migrants don't have legal citizenship, but they're treated more as citizens than the average Black American, right? And so I believe that because of all this, they have now decided that if they decide to try to cosplay as Native American or claim as Native Americans, not only do they have a greater moral authority, because let's keep it real, if you essentially are saying that you are native to this country, right? You are essentially telling white Americans that, hey, this is our territory, this is our land, so therefore you owe us. In addition, you owe us. In addition to the discrimination and Jim Crow and all that kind of stuff, right? Now it's weird because on one hand, they will say that they on one hand, right, the Black Americans who claim to be Native Americans, they will say that they're descendants of slaves and that they're native, which is which is weird because once again, Native American tribes also held African slaves. So how are you on one hand a descendant of slavery, but on the other hand a Native American? So it's weird. But from their point of view, right, they feel like claiming Native Americans will give them a sort of a greater claim over this sort of institution called the United States, right? They can essentially go to white Americans and have a stronger hand in the main thing. Because he put it to in a sentence, right? Whenever Black Americans ask for things, the first thing that white people say is what? You need to go back to Africa. You should be happy that we brought you over here as slaves, because otherwise you'll be somewhere in the jungle throwing spears in the middle of Africa. right? So they get tired of the fact that whenever they bring up the grievances, white Americans will sort of rebuff the grievances by reminding them that, hey, you are immigrants here the way we, right? You descend from another continent the way we do. And so you have so you have no more right over this country than we have. In fact, we probably have more because we were the white settlers. And so for a lot of them, claiming to be Native Americans is sort of a way to sort of, in many ways, not just from their point of view, disassociate themselves from the black Africans who they view as the bottom of the hierarchy, and who they have resentful for selling them to slavery, right? And who they genuinely don't want to go back to. It doesn't just help them cut out Africa, but it also gives them a stronger claim over the United States when it comes to white Americans, right? So that's really where a lot of this is coming from. Okay, okay, and it also explains the reason why they. And by the way, guys, look, I see the comments. I'll respond to them. Don't worry. In fact, I'm just finishing my monologue. When I finish my monologue, hey, I may even open a panel. Who knows, right? But go back to going back to what I was saying, right? For a lot of them, right, claiming Native Americans gives them a stronger claim over the United States. Okay, because not only does it allow them to sort of cut out Africa and not be associated with that continent because they're at the bottom of the hierarchy, and they feel resentment what's to that, right? And they hate that being thrown in the face. So not only are they able to cut out the African continent and just not be associated with that, but they're also able to have a stronger claim over the United States over white Americans, right? This, in my opinion, that's genuinely what they want. What they look, I personally believe that Black Americans don't genuinely care about white supremacy. What they say to do, right? They just hate the fact that they're at the bottom of it. You know, it's the same thing when it comes to white women. Remember, white women will complain about the white patriarchy, but the reality is, white women have no problem with white supremacy. They just want a better position within it. Black Americans, in my opinion, don't genuinely care about white supremacy, right? They simply want to have a better position within the white American power structure. That's all it is. And in my opinion, this is the reason why they hold Black Africans to a completely different standard. What am I saying? White Americans can enslave them, put them under Jim Crow, beat them, kill. They can do all these things, and Black Americans will still find it in their heart to quote unquote call them brother or give them all kinds of chance or try to, you know, be one with them. But when it comes to Black Africans, they got to do everything right. They got to do if Black Africans do one thing wrong or one thing goes wrong, all of a sudden, oh, fuck those Africans, we're not African, right? It's crazy, right? And fundamentally, this brings me back to the whole Tariq Nasheed situation. Tariq Nasheed literally said on his live stream that the reason why he essentially went on this diatribe against Black Africans was because he was trying to get dual citizenship, and that feels. So let me get it straight. I'm Tariq Nasheed. You telling me that this entire FBA, thing you've been doing, this entire calling Black Africans tethers, was because you were unable to get African citizenship? Is that what you're telling me? So essentially, what you're telling me is that you are holding Black Africans to a higher standard compared to Black Americans, because Black Americans literally never wanted to give you citizenship. You have to fight to get that, and even then, your citizenship is not honored. They will take a migrant and put over you. But despite this, you still try to find ways to work with them. But when it comes to Black Africans, the moment you face any kind of problems, the moment you face any kind of hurdles, the moment you are unable to get what you want, all of a sudden you want to cut all ties, call them tethers. All of a sudden now you're not African. And what breaks my heart is that you are essentially doing to Black Africans what you complain white people do to you. You guys complain that white Americans, place Black Americans on a complete different standard. In other words, white people and non-Black people, right? They can make all kinds of mistakes and still get a pass, and still, and still get leeway. But black Americans gotta be perfect. If they make anything wrong, if anything is off, they get punished. That's essentially what you're doing to black Africans, right? White Americans can mistreat you guys any way you want to, and you have no problem aligning with them. But then when it comes to black Africans, if black Africans or black African states do anything wrong or anything goes off, you guys are ready to throw them on the bus. You guys are ready to to dump on them. That's what we're talking. That's why y'all being called out, because obviously what's going on here. You don't really want to be African. Just be honest about that. That's the reason why you guys will spend hours fighting to claim to be Egyptian. You will spend hours fighting to claim to be. You will literally spend hours fighting to claim everything else but Black African. But whenever the conversation is about, okay, what about where you actually come from, Black Africa? All of a sudden, oh, like, we not African. We not one of them. So it's like, at that point, it's obvious what this is. And I think for a lot of, because I heard a lot of Black Americans who say, look, why is it that so many Africans, downplay race? Look, I call Africans call Africans to do that, but let's be honest here. The reason why many Black Africans, in my opinion, will sort of roll their eyes when Black Americans talk about, anti-Black race in America, because what they have seen is that you guys only bring this up when Africans are not in the conversation. What am I saying? Whenever it's a conversation between you and white Americans, you guys have no problem talking about how white Americans don't treat you right. White Americans have always trying to. You have no problem saying that, right? In fact, you will go out of your way to say that you guys are not American. But the moment Black Africans or the Black diaspora steps into a room, all of a sudden you guys go and hug the white man, hug the flag, and all of a sudden you don't see color. All of a sudden, color doesn't matter. All of a sudden now, well, in reality, we have more in common with this white man than you black tethers. So, that's the problem. White supremacy and anti-Black racism is only brought up when Black diasporans or Black Africans are not in the room. When they get in the room, you guys will side with the whites over us. And you will hug the flag, and all of a sudden, race doesn't matter. All of a sudden, this white American who you said was oppressing you is now your brother and your best friend. All those Black Africans are just tethers who are trying to steal from Black. I mean, it's crazy. So, what I want us to say is this: when it comes to Black, it's so crazy because and another thing I've started to notice is how a lot of them, Black Americans, will talk about how they don't fuck with us. Africans, look, it's not that Black Africans or Black Caribbeans don't fuck with you. Is that, let's be honest here, many of us have come to realize you guys don't genuinely want to be associated with us. The only time you guys want to claim Africa is when it's beneficial. That's it. So when you had the Black Panther shit, when you have Afro beats, all of a sudden they want to put on dashikis, right? All of a sudden they're African. But any other time, they're not African. Any other time, they're African booty scratchers. They're shithole countries. They're backward. Any other time, you align with the whites over us. Let's be honest here. Any other time, you don't want to be African, and hell, you don't want to be Caribbean either. This is not everyone, but I will say a good majority. And so when we see this happening, this is why many Black Africans, or I would say many Black diasporans, just stop caring. And yes, it may come off as them not fucking with you or not with you, but no, it's that they feel it, right? Now, there are, I think, a lot of people in the Black African, Black diaspora space, I think, who do have bad stereotypes about Black men, which is true. We acknowledge that. But I will say that even with that being said, a large percentage of it is that a lot of Black diasporans have recognized that your allegiance or you guys claiming Africa, right? So funny. I'm gonna get the break. You guys claim Africa the way white Americans claim you guys. Let me say it again. Black Americans will claim the black diaspora or black Africans the same way white Americans will claim black Americans, right? White Americans, 99.9% of the time, make it very clear they not want you. They only claim black Americans when it's beneficial. The same thing applies to black Americans from Africa, right? 99% of the time, 99% of the time, black Africans or African blue scratchers or backwards or the dusty sandals, black Caribbeans, any other time, these folks are essentially, all kinds of dusty. But then when it's beneficial, all of a sudden you're African now. So that's how a lot of the black diaspora feels. Right? And of course, we already know that years from now, because look, white Americans are already making it very clear that they will rather deal they would rather deal with the illegal Latinos than black Americans. And so years from now, when white Americans are successful in sort of destroying the black American population through illegal immigrants, to non-black groups who are being used as a buffer class, all of a sudden, black Americans they're all of a sudden going to start claiming Africa again. They're going to start claiming the diaspora again. Brother, we are the same. So come on, right? So that's the reason why this entire black Americans claiming to be Native American is frustrating to me, because one, all this comes down to is they don't want to be African. This is the reason why they started off talking about Egypt, started off talking about North Africa, started off talking about how all these non-black civilizations are black, right? Right? They will literally claim everything but Black African. And after the whole Cleopatra backlash and the backlash with this Hannibal movie coming up, now the sort of new thing is to claim Native American, right? That's what it is now. Because once again, they will rather be anything but black African descent. And when this Native American grift falls apart, they'll just come out and say, we don't want to be with y'all. Right? When all of this falls apart, when all of this grifting falls apart, black Americans will just come out and say, we don't want to be associated with you African blue scratchers, all you dusty foot, all you dusty folks in the Caribbean and Africa. Let's come out and say that. And that's fine. My only thing is, just don't come back years later when white Americans destroy you economically and demographically by essentially using non-black people as a buffer class. Don't come back later on talking about how proud you are to be African. Don't do that, because we'll have all them videos ready for you. We'll have Tariq. All this stuff's being recorded. We'll remind you. Wait a minute, Tyrone. Weren't you talking about how you were Native American? Why are you wearing a dashiki now? So let's keep it real. Now, to be fair, this is not all, right? The black Americans who do recognize African descent and who want to deal with the black diaspora, that's cool. We're talking about this growing number, and I will say even the majority of black Americans who are on this. But in my opinion, that's the reason why I'm getting tired of this conversation. I really am. Go ahead. Go and be Native American. Go be Egyptian. Go be all these things. Because I don't care anymore. Just don't come back and cry when the grifting stops, right? And all these non-black groups team up with white Americans that come at you. Don't come back and don't come back with dashikis when the shit falls apart. Don't do that, because at that point it wouldn't even matter. Because we would have known that. We would have known that you trying to now claim to be African again is really only because these non-black groups rejected you. It is what it is. So that's is about it. Let me go ahead and dive into the comments. My monologue is finished, and then I'll see if we can open the panel. Y'all know how I do my live streams. I always do my monologue first. Akua Obeng says the obsession wanted to be Native Americans also has to do with colorism, featureism. Unfortunately, a lot of black people find African a lot unlike Native American revolution. Yeah, that's true. But look, that plays a role. But the number one reason is they don't want to be so African. They don't want to be African. Let's be honest about that. And there are 4 reasons why I believe they do it, especially when it goes to Native Americans. 1, Africa's the bottom of the hierarchy. 2, Many of them feel resentment about being sold into slavery, right? Even though some were captured, many were sold. Three, right? White Americans will essentially throw Africa in their face whenever they make a grievance claim. So for them, they feel that by pushing away Africa, that will essentially make them more American. And four, they feel that by essentially claiming to be Native American, that gives them a greater claim over the United States as a whole. Right, so they can say, "Oh, well, you're the immigrant. We're not immigrants. We're native to this land. We're native Black America." Come on, Native American is a colonial term. No, I'm not gonna feel, but I'm indigenous. I have indigenous roots to America and to America. Okay, that's fine, Trap Rebel. So the question I have for you is this: so are you 100% Native American descent? Are you saying that you have? So let me go straight. If I were to go and take a DNA test of you, does the majority of your DNA say North America, indigenous? Or does the majority of your DNA say West Africa or Sub-Saharan Africa? I never said they all live on reservations. The people who run the tribes. Let's be honest here. I have already talked about how and here's what kills me, right? When it comes to the Native American tribes, they don't. Native American tribes literally, many of them held slaves, and many of them don't want Black Americans in there. Not only do Black Americans have to fight like hell to even get those tribal citizenship, they have to fight like hell to get to get these sort of tribal benefits. A lot of these Native Americans are much more willing to. They are much more open to let white people get in there than you are. But you be talking about how you Native. Come on. No. Yes, there are some white folks in there, but it's mostly run by Native Americans. Many Black have former history than these faith. Okay, let me ask you a question. What percentage of Black Americans have way more Native American ancestry compared to Black African ancestry? It's not a Disney, not all of us from Africa. Okay, that's fine. So the question becomes, what percentage, right, okay, if I were to take a DNA test, what percentage of Black Americans descend from Africa or just purely Native American? If I were to take a DNA test, what is the percentage of the Black American DNA that is African, and what is the percentage of it that is, Native American? Because I can very much predict that a majority will be Black African descent. I don't hate. Do you not understand the irony what you said? You're saying you don't hate Africans, but that's not your lineage. As a Black American, you're saying, yeah, I don't claim as a Black American who descended from slaves. I don't hate Africans, but at the same time, I don't want to claim that continent. That's an oxymoron. Shout out to you, Kazon Empire, and brother. I don't know if you listen. Sorry, I didn't respond to you, but you know how I do my live streams. I always do my monologue before I go to the comments. Shout out to you, brother. And look, you should probably look. What I will say is, go ahead and make a video on this, cover this topic, because I personally feel like, I personally, in my opinion, feel like this topic. So cover the topic, dive into it. Black as a whole way more than any white or immigrant. So once again, if you were a Black American, that essentially means, right? Because a Black part means that you are African descent. You cannot be Native. You can have some admixture with Native American, but you're not Native. You may not care about Egypt and all of that, but a lot of Black Americans do. Right, so the same way you are obsessed with Native Americans, many are obsessed with Egypt, but it's all from the same thing. Anything that gets them further away from Black Africa is a win. Has been, and here's another problem I have with it. Right, okay, Pan-Africanism. Okay, so let me ask you a question: has America been detrimental to Black Americans? Has the United States been detrimental to Black Americans? Has what? Now notice, right? It's all they only ever say this whenever the conversation of Black Africans. They will have no white Americans can literally put them under Jim Crow, do all these things, and that will not stop them from hugging the flag and claiming to America. So you can overlook all of the abuse and atrocities committed by white Americans and still call yourself American. But when it comes to black Africans, right? The moment something goes wrong, all of a sudden now, well, we're not Africa. All of a sudden now, Pan-African is a problem. That's what I'm talking about. You're holding black Africans or the blacks in Africa to a different standard. White America, the United States, the West can abuse you relentlessly and you still will give them grace. But when it comes to the African continent, they literally have to be perfect. Otherwise, oh, they're being detrimental. Okay, so if Pan-Africanism is detrimental, is America not detrimental? Or white Americans not detrimental to black America? What? Let me ask you, what has been more detrimental to black Americans? White Americans or Pan-Africanism? Answer that question. Most white Americans are immigrants that get into this shit. Yeah, and black Americans are immigrants too. You guys were brought here as now. Well, I was right. You guys are not indigenous either, right? I see. Extra, you literally prove my point. I'm like, you literally prove my point, guys. What did I say at the beginning of the live stream? I said the only reason black Americans claim to be Native Americans, once again, from their point of view, that gives them more of a claim over the United States. That's all it is. Okay? They know very well that they descend from Africa. Right? They know very well that everybody in North America is an immigrant except for Native Americans. Right? And so, as a way to have more of a claim over the United States, they're claiming to be native. So the reason they do this so that whenever white Americans tell them to go back to Africa, they say, "Well, what are you talking about? We are native to this country." I told you, man. Look at what he's. Come on, you prove my point. For you to say that black Americans, are somehow not immigrants to this country, yes, you guys were forced immigrants because you were forcibly brought here, but you are immigrants here. You are not native. What are you talking about? And you just put my point. You only claim Native Americans, right? Because you guys are tired of the fact that whenever you bring your grievances to white Americans tell you to go back to Africa. So as a way to have more of a claim over the United States, you are now saying, "Oh, well, we're not African, we are native. So in reality, all you whites need to go back to Europe." Stop it. No immigrant fucking say who's all black American is more American than some Ellis no immigrant fucking say who's American all black. So essentially what you're saying is that me saying that white Americans is more American. No, bro, that's what they say. Okay? I personally believe that, black Americans, but once again, I'm saying America is a white settler society. I don't care how you fucking feel about it, Extract. It's a white settler society. It was established by white settlers. You were brought here as a labor class, and that's all you've been. They used you as a labor class, and the moment in which they no longer needed you to be a labor class, they put you in a Jim Crow, right? And they essentially oppressed you. And the only reason why they stopped was really because of the Cold War. And how the Soviets kept how whenever white Americans wanted to criticize communism, the Soviets will bring up the Negro problem. Because once again, there have been many movements for civil rights. It only succeeded on the Martin Luther King because it happened at the perfect time. You had the Cold War. Okay, and so black Americans were able to use the Cold War and the fact that the Chinese and the Russians were criticizing Americans when it came to how they were treating blacks as a way to apply pressure on the white majority to give you civil rights. This is the reason why after civil rights were passed and after the Civil War, they turned around, reneged all the promises, gave all the affirmative action to white women, and you guys have been a permanent underclass ever since. Stop it. You are a white of the United States is a white settler state. To be American is to be white. That's what it means. Now, you can be white adjacent, right? You can be absorbed into the white classification. You can be a buffer class, but fundamentally, being an American in the United States is being white. And because black Americans are the furthest, they're not viewed as American. That's the reason why they only ever claim you as American when it's beneficial. But any other times, whenever they see too many black people around, y'all become niggers. Stop it. I'm noticing I'm noticing actual Native Americans are pushing back against this identity theft. I wonder what that then they'll try to say. Yeah, look, they don't want to be African. That's all it is. And I feel I said it. Once they fail being able to claim all these other groups, they'll just come out and say, "Yeah, we don't care. We don't care if we're African descent. We don't want to be associated with you," and that's fine. He says, "Look, brother, extra." I'm like, brother, like you're literally proving my point, right? My point. Right? I said, look, the only reason black Americans claim Native American is that they're tired of being told by the whites that they need to go with Africans. So for them, being Native American is a way to claim that. So you're saying, yeah, no, it's not your land, right? That's what I'm saying. By them claiming to be Native Americans, then they can hop on live stream and say, oh, well, actually, this is our land, and all of y'all whites, all of y'all tethers need to go back. Stop it. You're embarrassing yourself. You really are. You really are. Because everybody knows what this is. And the crazy part is, even the Native Americans, the tribes, don't want you there. Because a lot of them will actually prioritize whites being in there than you. They will let a white American come in there claiming to be Native, but for you, they'll put all kind of roadblocks. Like, come on. Indigenous, I'm sure that they want some bad things, but my mind said, look, indigenous people held black African slaves. That's what I'm saying. So it's like it's funny how on one hand you guys are saying that on one hand, right, you acknowledge that you guys are descendants of slaves, but then you're saying you're indigenous. How does that make sense? When the indigenous Native American tribes held African slaves, so how are you indigenous Native American, but at the same time a descendant of a slave when Native Americans also held slaves? Like, stop it. Also held black African slaves. Stop it. They can't escape their African roots. Every generation on Black America lives most. Yeah, it's dumb. It's dumb. Are you a Hamite? No. Are you a Hamite Cushite? No. Yeah, Ethiopia also, ye shall be Semite. So that's what's going on. I told you I'm West African. But that's what all of this comes down to. And we just gotta we got to be honest about that. Okay? That's what all of this comes down to. In terms of at the end of the day, what all of this comes down to is you guys do not want to be African. That's all it is. And that's fine. Just come out and say that. And once you guys admit that, then we can move on, right? All this other thing about Pan Africanism failed, the tethers, they don't focus. All of that stuff is just a bunch of bullshit. It's all a bunch of just it doesn't mean anything. It's excuses. All this comes down to is we don't want to be African, and that's fine, and we can move on from there. You know, even this comes my point, right? It's not just the whole of Native American, right? Now they're going around calling themselves Hebrew Israelites. I'm so fucking tired. But what I will do is this. I did promise that I would open a panel. I typically don't do this, but y'all already know. Okay, I give a small moment for folks who want to come through, and that's about it. So I'm gonna go here and put this right here. Okay. So for those who want to hop in and say some quick words, you can click the link and hop on the stream. So what I'll do is I will open the floodgates for a couple of minutes and see who comes through. If nobody comes through, then I'll go ahead and close live stream because I've that's the shit about it. So for those who want to come through, because folks have been complaining that I don't open the stream enough. Fine, so now what I'm trying to do now is at the end of my monologues and go into comments, I always try to give some time for those who want to hop on. If nobody wants to hop on, then we should just go and close, right? But as I wait for folks to come through, those who want to, look, that's what all it's about. That's all it's about. At the end of the day, you don't want to be African. And I think the quicker and the faster you guys admit that, I think the better it's for everyone. Right? So we can stop the conversation about, African booty scratchers or tethers or failed states. Like all this can stop. Because then we can come to understanding. This not everyone, right? No, you have your other ones, you have others who I think genuine, I think in my opinion, um who I believe genuinely, in my opinion, are proud African. But see, even Dr. Umar, apparently, Dr. Umar has been going around talking about how some non-blacks, traditional blacks. So even when it comes to the black Pan Africanists, even they try to claim other shit as black. So it's crazy. All right. So it looks like nobody's coming through, so that's fine. I'll leave it there. Cool. That's remember. But one thing, guys, look. At the end of the day, man, I was thinking about rescheduling this live stream, but in my opinion, I had to cover it. I had to cover it because I was fucking tired of seeing black Americans online claiming, obsessing over Egypt, obsessing over North Africa, obsessing over Native Americans, obsessing over. They want to claim everything but black African. And I'm tired of it. Just come out and admit that you don't want to be African. That's fine. We can move on. It is what it is. With that being said, y'all, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Tell me what you guys think. Hammer out. Like, share, subscribe, hammer out.